Let's answer another Reddit question. This one is, how can I ensure my website is ADA compliant? Guidance needed. And it says, we are a small business trying to understand the ins and outs of ADA compliance for our website. Although I did not find cases of small size or of small companies our size being targeted, the following trend is quite concerning. And then they list off some notable website accessibility and digital accessibility lawsuits. So this person has done some research, and then the post continues on, trying to find a compliant solution. I learned that popular website builders like GoDaddy, Wix, Shopify, etc., don't offer ADA compliant solutions by default. It got me thinking about how best to ensure that my website is accessible to everyone. Well, the best way to ensure this is to have an audit conducted and then have remediation take place where you have the content and the code being fixed. And then the post continues on. As per usual, looking at G2 and other sources, I came across three solutions: Facility, Equal Web, and Site Improve. The first sounded promising. I also heard about other providers. And then it says, the post continues, can you help me out with a few questions? Are there any small to medium enterprise significant lawsuits that happen because of non-compliance? Yes, very small businesses have been sued over website accessibility. So the size of the entity, it does not prevent a lawsuit or demand letter. Do we absolutely need solutions like Facility, Equal Web, or Site Improve, or is there a more budget-friendly alternative? It really depends on your objective. If you want to make sure that your website is fully WCAG conformant, and when I say WCAG, that is the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Those are the technical standards that we look to for best practices for ADA compliance. When we're trying to be WCAG conformant, it's going to cost more, and that's because we are really ensuring that our website is free of accessibility issues. When we talk about these different solutions, just know that with automation, we're going to always be limited. There is no way to remediate our website through software. There is no way that a scan is going to reveal all of the accessibility issues for us. There's no way that an accessibility widget is going to make our website WCAG conformant. So do you need these solutions? Absolutely not. But what you need to do is make sure to put in manual effort into your website. And if you are not familiar with accessibility, you are going to need to source that work to someone who is familiar with accessibility. And then it says, how effective are these solutions in ensuring ADA compliance compared to, say, manually updating and optimizing our website? There we go. The poster got it right. Manually updating is the key here. So when it comes to automation, it's not necessarily that automation is bad or it doesn't do anything. There can be some benefit, there can be some nominal benefit, but when it comes to these different automated solutions, you just have to ask yourself, what does it actually do? Because the end game here is WCAG conformance. So we can derive some benefit through automation. So let me give you the example of Site Improve. Site Improve is based around a scan, and there are different outputs that come from that scan, including progress reports and highlighting what has been done, etc. But just know that when you have the scan as a basis, you are already limited to a subset of accessibility issues that are going to be flagged. And so just think about 25% of the 50 WCAG success criteria will be mostly flagged by a scan. And then from there, you work from that, but you also have to still manually review the results of a scan because there can always be false positives. There can occasionally be or there can always be false negatives. There can occasionally be false positives. So it's just not conclusive. And then with something like Facility, it's really an add-on to the website, but this is not for WCAG conformance. So it's something that, yes, there can be an enhancement and maybe some people will find it useful. But what we want to get to is we want to get to full WCAG conformance. And then it says, any advice or insights would be really appreciated. I want to make sure I'm doing right by my users and customers without draining resources. We all care about equal opportunities and equality. That is not the question here. It really is about doing things in a way SMEs can afford complying. Okay, so it just depends. Like, I understand resources, everybody's resources have a limit. And with accessibility services, if you do get genuine services, it is going to cost at least a few $1,000s. So you want to know where to direct your efforts. And what I would do, I recommend the audit and remediation, because that is going to take you to where you want to be. You want to be fully WCAG conformant. And I have another video where I talked about a small business that is on a budget. And in this case, it was a restaurant, and the advice there would largely apply here. So I will link to that video in the description. But for now, let's read through some of the comments. This first comment is quite long, so I'm not going to read it all. It says, "What's your current site? I'm a developer. Never install or pay for accessibility apps. They don't really do much, and you'd get sued while using them." Yeah, that can be the case. There are some law firms that have figured out a hack in that. Usually websites with an overlay widget, they will be targeted. Um, what it really comes down to is ensuring a screen reader can navigate your page effectively. That is a large part of accessibility, is ensuring screen reader access. But that's not everything. Some of these tips include, and then he goes through the tips, and then it says, then there's always adding alt tags to images. So then we have some discussion on that. You can also hide items, color contrast ratio. He provides the WebAIM color contrast. I use this tool for testing accessibility. You really want to have zero red flags. Yes, that's always good if you have zero errors on Wave. And then if you have service cards or something, I'd like to add to them as lists in the codes, so the screen reader goes over an item, et cetera, et cetera. So what this response has done is they've provided a handful of accessibility tips, which are nice, but this isn't where the original poster, they need something that is more thorough than, here's a quick tips blog post. They're looking to be thorough. They're looking to make sure that they provide access, and they want to make sure that they are compliant. So you really need to pay attention to detail, run through a checklist, and I will include my WCAG checklist in the description. And with that, you'll start to understand all of the considerations that need to go into making a website accessible. This next comment says, start with getting an audit done. I do them for clients, and it takes anywhere from 3 minutes for an automated shallow scan to a few days with a manual audit. So this gets off to the right start. As I've said, an audit is where you'd want to start, because you need to find all of the issues. Now, the audits don't take 3 minutes, because a scan isn't an audit. If I go to Wave and I run a scan, I didn't just audit a website. An audit is a formal evaluation conducted by a technical accessibility expert. And then they say the cost can range upward from free. So an audit is never free. A scan may be free, but an audit is not. And from free to upward of $2,500. That was a quote I received while doing my research. That's on the lower side, but yes, it can come down to that. But that's a decent quote. $2,500 for a website is a quote. It's really going to depend on the website. And then they continue on. After that, you can go with a widget, which is fairly expensive, or go for full site remediation. Okay, so here's where this poster falls off, or this response falls off. Going with the widget doesn't do anything. Why would you get an audit and then install a widget? That doesn't make any sense. If you go with remediation, you are better off investing in a website redesign and have accessibility factored into the project. So I like the direction here is that we are working accessibility into the website, into our processes as we are building it. But you don't have to redesign a website. You can, for most clients that come to me, we don't have to redesign their website. There's only a few occasions where I've said yes. I mean, there are so many accessibility issues here. You just want to start over because you're using outdated technology. You're going to be better off just taking this project and using it as a gateway to rebuilding your whole website, making a better web design, etc., so that you get even more value for your money versus us trying to go in and remediate this very old website that is just riddled with accessibility issues. But that's usually not the case. Usually remediation is much better than having a full website redesign. And so he gets he gets into some of the details here. He says websites are always changing. Be careful with the websites are always changing part. Yeah, I mean, true. Like people are constantly updating websites, but a lot of websites aren't constantly changing. So that can be a source of confusion. The widget will get you most of the way to compliance. Absolutely not. This is horrible advice. Manually remediating what doesn't meet the compliance after the widget will carry the rest of the way. No, so you can't combine automated. There is no automated remediation, by the way, but you can't combine a widget with manual work. It does not work that way. So, absolutely not. An attorney that has handled thousands of these cases told me that the most important part of whatever you do is to have an accessibility statement on your website that states you have made significant efforts to make the website accessible and that you are always working on improving it. No, that's not true. So, the most important part is having an accessible website. An accessibility statement is more like, think of it as something as that can practically help you in that people have a way to reach out for support if they need assistance using the website. So in that way, it can be helpful. But it's more like, think of an accessibility statement as one of the two best practices for making your website ADA compliant, and something that can work against you if you don't have an accessibility statement published. But it's not like websites have an accessibility statement and then all of a sudden the plaintiff's law firm decides that they're not going to sue that website owner. That's not how it happens. I don't care how many cases this attorney has handled. That is not the case. Like I can't tell my clients, hey, don't worry about it. Just make sure you have an accessibility statement, and the plaintiff's lawyers will leave you alone. So, and this might not even be what the attorney said. This might be what this person has interpreted, because they've already said that they think the widget will get you most of the way to compliance. Then the next comment is, first things first, you have a website. If you do, open it up in Chrome and run a Lighthouse scan for accessibility. Hit the major points, and then he lists out some of the points. And then he says, these aren't all the requirements. Your requirements may be different from someone else's. I mean, the web content accessibility guidelines stay the same no matter who you are, but it's a starting point. I'm not sure about any of this. I'd recommend hiring someone to do it for you and learning about it on the side and do some side projects. Learning as your website is being made accessible. So learning while service work is being done is a really good approach, because you do need to learn about this. Because you'll eventually want to get out of the habit of sourcing this work to third parties, because that does get expensive. Also, you don't want to have a segmented approach where you have a website update, or you upload content, or you add content, and then you make it accessible. You want to make things accessible as you go, so it's a part of your process. It is a part of the flow, rather than we have to stop and now make things accessible. And then it says, after you learn some HTML, the 88 requirements are quite literally common sense things that you're like, duh, there's a much better solution when building a site. No, it's not. The web content accessibility guidelines are not common sense. Some of them are intuitive. Some of them are logical, but it's not all common sense. It's not like you would just, if you really think about building a website, everything makes sense. It makes sense when you're familiar with the web content accessibility guidelines, but this isn't something that you just come with because you're familiar with building a website. And then the last comment is, my company builds websites and we typically use plugins for compliance. No. Do not use, you never use a plugin to make your website ADA compliant. Also, YouTube will automatically caption everything if you embed it on your site. YouTube does have automatic closed captions, and this is a weird throw in here, because it's just like, I mean, yes, captions are a part of accessibility among so many other things. But yeah, I mean, YouTube has decent automatic closed captions, but I don't rely upon those. What I do is I use AI to automatically generate my captions, and then I manually review them to make sure they are as accurate as I can make them within a reasonable amount of time. And the comment continues, though I don't usually recommend using YouTube embeds. Like everything else in the world, there are pros and cons to be weighed. Okay, so this last comment wasn't that helpful, but we've gone over a lot here, and the point is that if you're trying to balance the budget and what is best, that's going to be difficult, because what is best is to make sure that you have thoroughly evaluated your website and you have remediated all of the accessibility issues. If you are balancing the budget, it really comes down to, well, how much is your budget? Because that's going to tell you how far you can go. As you lower your budget, there are going to be inherent sacrifices with less money being spent. That's always going to be the case. But there are many things you can do for less money, and they can go a long, long way. It's just you won't have that sense of finality. You won't have every last accessibility issue being taken care of, but you can definitely go a long way with a short budget. And there are many things that you can do on your own to dramatically improve accessibility. So it's not like you can't accomplish a lot on your own, even if you're a small business or you're a medium business. It's just that you have to understand that there's an inherent sacrifice with spending less money on accessibility services. So I always recommend fully manual services, good old fashioned manual services. So many accessibility companies want to sell you on automation because that is what is most profitable for them. They want to be software as a service type of companies because that yields the best valuations, etc. This is scalable. What is not scalable are professional services. So not significantly scalable. So that these are my comments for this post, which is a really good one, and you can tell this person thought out their questions, and they are right about the website builders. Wix is more proactive than others, but you can't rely upon them for out of the box accessibility. In this space, you really are on your own, and you have to do your best research. And that is why I have this channel. Is I'm helping people have the best research, because you look through these comments and you find answers that are exactly wrong. It's like you couldn't be any more wrong if you tried to be. So here with this question, how can I ensure my website is ADA compliant? Go for WCAG conformance. If you are looking to ensure, if you are looking for assurances and relief and confidence that your website is indeed accessible, strive for WCAG conformance. And then when you get there, you will be in excellent shape and following best practices for ADA compliance. I will include links to more resources in the description that can help you with, one, working through ADA compliance, two, learning more about website accessibility, and then three, potential services to go ahead and get if you want to make sure your website is fully WCAG conformant.